Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. I know this isn't my usual setting. I'm currently staying at my partner's house, so I just thought I'd film here instead of having to shoot home to do so. Today I'm going to rank top 10 found footage movies. Obviously it goes without saying, but this is my list. If there's a film you think is missing, I either haven't seen it or it hasn't quite topped my top 10. There's going to be plenty to talk about. I'm not going to go too in-depth on like plot synopsis or anything like that unless I feel it's like super underrated. But yeah, let's just get straight on with it. So my honourable mentions that didn't quite make my top 10 but came very close are as follows. We have Chronicle. I absolutely love this movie, but the reason I didn't include it on my list is that I don't quite think it counts as horror, but I absolutely love Chronicle. It's a really, really good found footage film. I have Unfriended, the first one and the second one, Dark Web. If I had to choose, I would probably go for the second one just because I think it's a little bit more scary, but I really enjoy both Unfriended movies. They're the kinds that are like all set on one screen whilst friends are on like a Zoom call. Speaking of which, another honourable mention is Host, the COVID Zoom seance movie that kind of went pretty viral at the time. Really, really good one, really snappy runtime, and yeah, super scary. I really enjoy that one. Next we have Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, which is, it does what it says on the tin. It's a group of people exploring a haunted asylum. That one does get very creepy. I really enjoy and would recommend. On a similar wavelength to that as well, we also have Grave Encounters. Really enjoy that one. I enjoyed it more when I was younger because it freaked me out a little bit more. It hasn't stood up entirely for me, but it's still one I really enjoy. So now let's get into my top 10, and in the 10th spot we have The Bay, which follows an ecological kind of disaster at a small town. It's something that the authorities kind of covered up, but 3 years later a reporter comes to town, reveals all and tells its audience about the parasitic outbreak that occurred in the town. This is a really interesting one because it's as you can tell by the whole parasite outbreak sort of thing, it does get gory in places, and the documentary style of found footage is really, really fun. This one also freaked me out because it's something that not, you know, will happen, but it's something that could happen, and it kind of follows town members as they experience what's happening and like try and save themselves, and it's quite scary in places. Highly, highly recommend this one. I think it's super underrated. Sorry, I don't think enough people have seen this one. I watched it in October in the UK on Shudder. Not sure if it's still on there, but if it is, definitely check that one out. I highly recommend it. In 9th place, I have Netflix original Creep. I wasn't sure whether to talk about Creep 1 or Creep 2, so I'm going to cheat and kind of combine them both together. If you haven't seen Creep, which I'm sure you have, the title kind of tells all. It's about a very sincere, unsettling guy who posts job ads online for filmmakers to come and do a day's shooting with him, and he offers quite a lot of money, so the filmmakers are like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll come and hang out with you for a day and film whatever it is you want for $1,000. But of course it doesn't end up being what they expect, and Joseph, the character's name, played wonderfully by Mark Duplass, is not a character that you want to hang out with for a day, let alone any longer. I love these movies. They are both kind of like 80 minutes long, so you can like shoot through them really, really quickly. Mark Duplass is really creepy and really unsettling in this role. I believe he helped write it as well. Patrick Bryce, the director, is also in the first movie as kind of the filmmaker slash victim, however you want to look at things. He's really great too. I think these movies are quite inventive and they're really simple. They're just like 80 minutes dialogue heavy. Not too much in the way of horror. I think it goes for more of a unsettling, creepy tone rather than outright horror, but both of them do have their moments in terms of gore and scares. I would highly recommend both of them. I've kind of watched these like back to back a couple of times because they're both just 80 minutes. I feel like it works quite well like that, but I highly recommend those if you haven't seen those already, which I'm sure you have. In 8th place, I couldn't do my list without mentioning Paranormal Activity. I ummed and ahed about which paranormal movie to put on my list. There's kind of, I think some are really great and some are not so great. There's some that scare me more than others, but the one I had to go with is the original, just for what it managed to achieve. Again, like Creep, it's not like heavy on the scares, but the way the camera is utilised and the tension builds, it ends up scaring you regardless. And of course, Paranormal Activity, the original, does have a really, really spooky, creepy, unsettling and so realistic ending. I absolutely loved the final like 5-10 minutes of that movie. I enjoy it as a franchise really, despite its weak entries, but I do think the first one is the one that hits the nail on the head best with the use of the found footage aspect. Obviously, these films follow families that kind of think their house is haunted or think they're getting kind of haunted by a ghost or something, so they tend to like set up cameras in the corners of their room, and that's how we view the footage. I think it's really well done. The performances, they're judged a lot in the first movie, but I kind of like how naturalistic they are, so I enjoy it for that. And whenever I think of found footage, I just always think of Paranormal Activity. I just think it achieved something really, really cool, so I had to put it on my list. In seventh place, we have Cloverfield, which I was like kind of wary about spoiling, but I feel like we've all seen Cloverfield at this point, right? If you haven't, I'm very, very sorry. I try not to spoil too much. What I love about Cloverfield is you don't see the villain slash creature often, so when you do see it, it's really, really creepy and unsettling. The main thing I enjoy about Cloverfield is the way so it follows like a city that's being attacked by something, so everything's really frantic, it's fast paced, and you get everyone's reactions. And I think, do you ever watch a film and you're like, oh, they should be 10 times more terrified than they are, or why aren't they panicking, why are they not overreacting, because I would in that situation. That is what Cloverfield hits the nail on the head with. Everyone is fucking freaking out, running around like a headless chicken. Something genuinely terrible is happening, and they're acting like something terrible is happening, so I really like it for that. A lot of people don't enjoy how shaky the camera is in Cloverfield, but I kind of appreciate it for that because of what I just said. It's like quite a frantic, tragic event that's happening, so the shaky cam is just totally realistic in that respect. I think it's aged really well as well. It came out, is it early 2000s? And I feel like it was one of the first kind of more mainstream found footage films. Correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't do much research for this video at all. But yeah, I just really enjoy this one. I really like 10 Cloverfield Lane, but I feel like this is the superior Cloverfield film, just for that element of surprise and the way it doesn't show you too much, so it keeps things spooky. In sixth place, we have a film I've watched in the last few years, and it genuinely managed to creep me out. My partner especially, this one really, really scared him, and I always remind him of it, and he hates me for it. I am talking about The Taking of Deborah Logan. This film kind of comes under criticism sometimes because of how society views old people, especially in horror, is quite questionable. And this film follows a crew studying a lady that has dementia, and then it turns out that it may not be dementia, but something a little bit more sinister. So the horror of the movie is an old person kind of losing their mind, which, you know, it is what it is. But I think by the end of the movie, it kind of does enough to make you see it in a different perspective. The main reason I would recommend The Taking of Deborah Logan is that it's actually very, very scary. I think it's one of the scariest movies on this list. It builds and builds, it has like a creepy, unsettling atmosphere, and then the final minutes are just absolutely terrifying. Like, there's one scene that will stay on your mind for ages after viewing. I highly recommend this one if you haven't seen it. It's been underwatched, underrated for quite some time, but it is finding its audience at the moment. So if by chance you haven't checked it out, please do, and let me know what you think. This one really unsettled me. Following along with another film that really did actually manage to freak me out, where are we? In fifth place, we have House LLC. Again, the same as The Taking of Deborah Logan. This one was kind of underviewed for quite some time, but I feel like every kind of October, us found footage / horror fans really push this one, and it is starting to find its audience. Hell House, to put it simply, it follows a group of friends making a documentary in an old building that was used as a haunt, and when it, I think when it was used as a haunt, something really terrible happened, and it's meant to be like haunted. So they go in with their cameras and film and try and see if anything spooky happens, which of course it does. If you're scared of clowns, steer clear of this one. Or if you're like scared of clowns but want to give it a go, just be warned, because the clowns in this film are so freaking creepy. What I love about Hell House is that it's kind of one of those movies where you have to look in every single corner every time something's being shot. So I'm looking behind me now because just thinking about it is really freaking me out. But yeah, every time that there's a character on screen talking to the camera like I am now, check the corners, see if you can see anything, because there is a lot in here that you kind of don't realise until multiple viewings, which I really enjoy. It is set around clowns, so the first like super scary thing that happens here is that these big scary clown figures are seeming to be moving around the house. For that reason, I think it's a really good Halloween-y time kind of watch. A lot of horror films are set around haunts and found footage, particularly ones like the houses that October built come to mind, and of course Haunt itself, which isn't found footage but it is set in a haunt. I think House LLC is the one that does that trope best. Let me know if there's any others that I've missed there, because I really enjoy this kind of sub genre of horror. I think it's really spooky. But yeah, do check out Hell House. There are 4 of these movies, 2 and 3. I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I don't think they're great. I think one of them I gave like 1.5 stars. But the new one that came out last year acts as like a prequel, and that one is fun too. But yeah, the first one is the best one. Definitely check out House LLC if you haven't already. In 4th place, we have something that I think is quite divisive. I absolutely love this film. I know not many of you do, but hear me out, okay? I'm talking about The Visit, which is directed by M. Night Shyamalan, which obviously is a director that is always divisive. The reason I love The Visit so much is because it has that Shyamalan twist, and I didn't see this one coming, and I showed my partner probably like 3 years ago now. He didn't see it coming either, and he is really, really creeped out by this movie. So basically it follows 2 youngish kids, 2 preteens just about, a boy and a girl, who go and stay with their grandparents without their mum for the first time, and they haven't met their grandparents before. So they go on the train, they meet their grandparents, and then they are told at first that they're not allowed out of their rooms past a certain time. And then, you know, things are revealed and the grandparents are acting really, really creepy. There's so much unsettling stuff in here, trust me. But yeah, things kind of aren't as it seems. There's something wrong with the grandparents, and that is the whole premise of the film. The reason I love this film so much is because of the performances from the boy and the girl. I can't remember what their names are. Olivia de Jong is the girl. She was in Elvis recently, if you've seen that. And I can't remember the guy's name, but I'll like put a picture of him on one of the sides here. Their performances are really good. There's some really funny moments with the pair. I really enjoyed them. And this one, like the 2 I've just mentioned, it actually really did manage to freak me out and scare me with some of the imagery. There's a scene involving a game of Yahtzee that I quote to my partner all the time to freak him out. And there is also a really creepy scene that's set kind of like under outdoor like decking that will definitely stay with you, I'm sure, as it had with me. Most Shyamalan films have a twist. Obviously he's known for it, and I do really like the one in here. I think this is why some people don't like this movie, because they don't necessarily like the twist. I like it. I think it's great. Definitely check this one out and let me know what you think. In 3rd place, I'm sure you've been waiting for me to mention this one. It's absolutely impossible to do a found footage horror film ranking without talking about the Blair Witch Project. I just wish I was there for that marketing and when everyone thought it was real and that the footage was real, because oh my goodness, best marketing ever. I can't dispute that whatsoever. What a fantastic, fantastic idea. And I think it's kind of, people talk about it now in like kind of a negative way. They're like, oh, there's no way people actually believe that that was happening and it was true. I've looked into this and people genuinely believed it. So if you don't know, the Blair Witch Project follows a group of friends on a hike in a forest, and they believe they're being followed / something ghosty is happening in the forest around them. The way this was marketed, they used completely unknown actors and they put posters around and stuff and made it seem like the film and the footage was actually found footage. It was real and people did believe it, and I think that is absolute genius. A few like modern audiences of this film don't particularly love it because nothing happens. But I kind of think that's the beauty of it, you know, like the unknown is what's scary to you. And if you put yourself in the character's shoes and imagine what you would feel being kind of like out in a forest, kind of lost, not knowing what's going on, I think that is really, really creepy. And yes, you don't see anything, but I think sometimes what's left to the imagination is 10 times more scarier than anything that can be seen. And that's why I've included it on my list. It's kind of known as the first found footage film to kind of, maybe not the first ever made, but the first to kind of push it into the limelight and make it more of a thing. And many movies that are on my list today are kind of inspired by the Blair Witch Project. So for that reason, I had to put it on my list. What it managed to achieve is just fantastic. I appreciate it so much. Okay, so in second place is the film that you guys probably think is going to be in first place, but it's not. In second place, we have Spanish horror film Wreck. I absolutely love Wreck, and the reason I love it so much is because just when you think towards the end that all the scary shit has gone down and you're in the clear, something happens that will sear itself into your mind and you will never forget it for years and years to come. I'm not going to spoil with this one because, like I said, like when you think everything's over and it like ups the ante even more, that's when things get really scary and really good. So I'm not going to spoil what happens. But Wreck is kind of set in a block of flats, like an apartment building type thing, and everyone is quarantined for reasons that I'm not going to disclose. At first, even the people that live there don't know why they're not allowed to leave. They don't know why. So let's leave it there with the plot synopsis of that one. The reason I love this one so much, like I just mentioned, it is genuinely scary. It has fun with it. There's a lot of gore, there's a lot of violence, and it's really well shot as well. Like the found footage element is done really well. The acting is good, the performances are really good. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there with that one. It's just, I think it's the most well-loved found footage film outside of Blair Witch. I think it's known as like the scariest found footage film. And when I announced that I was doing this video, I put on Twitter just to ask people what their favourite found footage film was, just to see if there was anything I was missing. A lot of people said Wreck. It was a really popular choice. It was the most popular choice of all. The other film that was really popular whilst I'm here was The Last Exorcism, which I haven't seen yet, so I'm sorry it's not on this list, but I will make sure I check that one out soon. But yeah, Wreck is well loved for a reason. It's one of my favourite Spanish horrors that I've ever seen. It's really scary. The gore, the practical gore and stuff just works super well, and I love it for that. Okay, so that brings us to first place, and this film that I'm about to discuss is so important to me and my horror journey. It was one of the first horror films I ever watched. It was probably my first found footage horror I watched, if not Paranormal Activity. And it's so underrated, it's so underseen, and if you take anything away from this video, it's that you have to go away and watch As Above, So Below. I don't want to spoil what happens here because it's best to go in as blind as possible. All you need to know that it is set in the Paris catacombs, which in itself is like a really creepy location, right, because of all the bones and the skulls and things like that. It's scary, the cast are fantastic, the lead is Perdita Weeks, and I love her performance here. She is absolutely fantastic. It kind of has like a slow build, so the ending, the last 15-20 minutes go absolutely crazy, but the horror imagery throughout is fantastic. It's got a lot of like philosophy incorporated in the plot as well, which is so interesting. I love it for that. And yeah, I don't want to like go into it too much because it is one of those movies that you have to go into as blind as possible. But I will kind of like rewatch this one probably once a year. I just love it so much. The philosophy element, especially about like Nicholas Flamel and stuff. As a Harry Potter fan as well, I was like, oh my god, this is insane. Obviously, I know he's a real person, but you know what I mean. It just incorporates that all so well, and the horror kind of makes sense, and it has like a story that's based on all these old mythologies and stuff like that, and I just think, god, it's so interesting. It's a film that's well shot, well acted, loads of horror in it, and it has a good story. These found footage films don't always have the best story, but As Above, So Below I think is genuinely very clever. So that is it. That is my top 10 found footage horror films with a few additions / honourable mentions sprinkled in there for you. Sorry it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I hate spoiling movies. It's something I'm really like aware of, and if I'm recommending you guys movies, I don't want to like go into it too much, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Please comment down below and let me know what your favourite found footage movies are, and let me know what I've missed, because I'm genuinely like, I'm sure that I've missed so many here because this genre is so saturated. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.